Hello, listeners. Jordan here. I just want to let you know that you can listen to Nighttime early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Include it with Prime.
You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Handsome Aaron Airport. It's time, buddy. Time to keep Canada weird. But before we do, I want to ask you a question. How are you? What is new?
I am good. Not much is new. Well, I mean, one really nice thing is that I saw you on the weekend.
Yeah, I had a lot of FaceTime with you. We had a wonderful dinner. We had steak and...
Well, you had steak. I had a hamburger.
Okay. Regardless, it was a wonderful time together.
But we were also with our good friend, Randy.
Mm-hmm. The Rand Club will be delighted to hear that he made an appearance on our date night. Another question for you before we get started tonight, though. What's in your cup? I see you have a Robin's Donuts cup there. What do you got in it?
I have my No Boats on Sunday, vodka soda.
Oh, you're back on the gooch.
Yeah, man. Yeah, can't get enough. So, okay. But it was in the fridge. And I do have some of my other staple drink, the sugar-free, caffeine-free Coca-Colas. But
okay. You should put it all in the drink together. I call it swamp water when you mix a couple drinks.
Yeah, but I'm not 16 years old. I don't need to drink swamp water anymore. I enjoy the taste of alcohol, so I don't have to cover it up with anything.
Okay.
So,
all right. Well, let's get into it here. Our job is not to cover up the taste of alcohol with things or reminisce about being 16 and enjoying going up to one of those fountain pops and taking every flavor. We're here to keep Canada weird by seeking out and highlighting the unique and offbeat stories that played out across this great nation over the past week. And we will do that tonight, but we're also going to hear from many members of the Keep Canada Weird Army, because last week you called out for something that upset me, something that has brought me down all day preparing for this episode. You asked listeners to contribute to the show by way of hate mail, targeting and directed it at me. And oh gosh, you picked the worst possible week to do that, because last week I made the most serious error a podcaster can ever do. And the Keep Canada Weird Army is going to let me know about it. Let's give the first shot at me to AJ from Alberta, someone who is very pissed at me.
Hey there, my name's AJ from Edmonton, Alberta. Jordan, that whole story about the chemtrails and Premier Smith, you referenced us as BC, British Columbia. I don't know, it might be time to hang up the headphones, buddy. But anyway, since I am calling from Edmonton, if you've got the ear of Robin's Donuts, maybe you can convince them to come back to Edmonton. They've been gone now probably 30 years, and I miss them dearly. I've been loving the show. You guys take care. Bye.
So yes, as AJ said, in last week's episode, not long after you asked listeners to send in hate mail about me, I erroneously referred to the Premier of Alberta as the Premier of BC. And I didn't just do it once. I said BC like 3 times in a row. I got a story about chemtrails. So, Aaron, British Columbia is a long way from modest Nova Scotia that we're in. But some interesting things are happening over in British Columbia. And it has to do with the Premier of British Columbia, Danielle Smith. She often courts controversy, and she's done it again.
Yeah, and I'm going to sit here and relish in that a little bit. But at the same time, I did not notice you making that mistake when we were recording, so I'm probably just as guilty.
You're guilty too. You're like an accessory after the fact by not calling me out.
I'm an accessory, yeah, absolutely. So I should have stopped you in your tracks and said, "No, that's mistake, but I completely didn't notice
Okay.
at all. So I'm just as ignorant, if not more ignorant than you are.
I didn't notice in the moment when it happened. I didn't notice when I was like editing and preparing the episode. I did at the last minute when like after releasing the episode, I had like 3 or 4 voicemails almost immediately, just like AJ's. So I did go back and do some revisionist history type work and corrected it so people listening in the future won't hear the same embarrassing mistake. I'm going to take it on the chin. I did misspeak last week and everybody
Yeah.
noticed, including another listener named Megan. Here's Megan's beef.
I was just listening to Keep Canada Weird this morning as I was eating my breakfast, getting ready for work, and you were talking about the chemtrails, and you said that they were the chemtrails in BC, and then so on and so on. And I was thinking that you were going to correct yourself when you had realized that you had made that mistake. And I kept listening, and you never did correct yourself. And it actually made me very irritated and annoyed. So I'm looking forward to my Robin's merch. Thanks.
Hmm. Yeah, I like how she sneaks Robbins in there at the very end because the challenge was if you send in hate mail towards Jordan and also try to work in Robin's donuts at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So far both hate mails that you've received have done that and checked those boxes.
Yeah, but they did a great job. AJ's thing is like he'll forgive me if I get Robbins to reopen in Alberta after 30 years. Megan simply wants anything from Robbins to compensate her for the frustration she had to live with on the day that I ruined because I made that mistake during her breakfast. We have one more bit of hate mail to start the show with, then we'll get into it. This is Joel.
Hey Jordan, bus stop and Erin Airport. Joel here from Edmonton, which is located in the province of Alberta, not British Columbia. I'm fulfilling Erin's request. I'm sending in hate mail for Jordan, but it's more corrective mail than hate mail. In the October 9th edition of Keep Canada Weird, you covered a story about chemtrails, and twice you incorrectly referred to Danielle Smith as the Premier of British Columbia. The news clip you played stated Alberta's Premier, Danielle Smith, yet even after this you still called her British Columbia's Premier. But I guess I can forgive you since you're from Halifax, New Brunswick.
Hmm.
And if I can just say, we don't have Robin's Donuts here in Alberta anymore. All ours closed down. The last time I was at a Robin's Donuts here would have been back in the early 90s. My dad would take me to elementary school, and every Wednesday morning we'd stop at Robin's Donuts for a donut on our way to school. My dad is still alive, and what I'd give to have another Wednesday morning donut with him at Robin's Donuts. I enjoy the show, guys. Thanks for doing your part to keep Canada weird.
That took me for a ride there because that started critical, got funny, and then
Yeah.
ended heartwarming. Like, Joel, my goodness.
One thing I noticed in that voicemail, and now listening to a few voicemails here tonight about robins in Alberta. So Alberta has not only gotten rid of their rats, but also got rid of their robins.
Yeah. Maybe Tim's is in bed. Tim Hortons is in bed with Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta. Who knows? But
Yeah, maybe.
it
But I just can't imagine living in a province that doesn't have an alternative to the evil Tim
yeah, that is
Hortons.
pretty sad for those people out there. You know what else is sad though? Is when I present to you stories that insensitively target your weakness in your heart, which is your love of pets, animals, cats, dogs specifically. This isn't a part of our hate mail towards Jordan collage that we just experienced. That is over and behind us now. But this is a bit of criticism, and this is one I will own up to, and criticism that I hear and will consider moving forward. This is a listener named Charlie who has something to say about my story selection. And I'm gonna make it right tonight. This is what he has to say.
Hello, bus stop Jordan Bonaparte and handsome Erin Airport. It's Charlie calling, your Yukon correspondent, home of the rotisserie mystery. First things first, let's just get this out of the way. Today I was drinking my imaginary Robin's Donuts coffee, as we don't have one here. I was listening to your podcast. And when the segment came on about the dog, my first thought was, why is Jordan bringing up sad animal stories when Aaron has directly expressed he doesn't enjoy those stories? Then boom, Aaron calls you out, and it was justified. On side note, where I live, we have nothing. So once a month or so, I go into the city where there's a Tim Hortons, and I'll go and get a Tim Hortons, forgetting what it tastes like. And it just reminds me that Tim Hortons does really suck now. So, anyways, thanks a lot. Love your podcast, long time listener. And every once in a while, I just throw on the Airport album. It's a good hit. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Does that qualify for your promotion where if it that's kind of hate mail, critical mail, mentioned Robbins, dunked on Tim's, and plugged our old band Airport? Is that good for you?
Yeah, that I'm gonna listen to that voicemail before I go to bed tonight, on loop for a while. It made me really happy. It tickled me in all of the areas that I want to be tickled, and yeah, and shouting out the old band Airport. This caller really knew what buttons to push in all the right
Well,
ways.
fortunately, not only is Charlie hitting the right buttons in the right ways, it works as a perfect segue for our first story of the night. This is almost like my apology to you for airing nasty and sad animal stories. This, I think, is a pleasant animal story. I'm going to call this section Clown Collars on Cats. So, this is the story of a specially designed collar that is being used in Canada that will allow wild birds to be more safe around our hunting house cats. Here's the story, and then we'll talk about this. I think this is a happy pet story. You'll tell me when we finish.
So this is a high-vis collar that is designed to go around collars of cats, and the idea behind it is that if you put this onto your cat, it creates a very high visibility signal that taps into the color vision capacities of birds and makes the cat really apparent or visible to birds.
Hello. He's 14 years old. We found him starving on our property when he was about a year old.
Oh, yeah.
And he's been here ever since.
Now, what is this around his neck?
Oh, that's a Birds Be Safe collar, and that makes cats more visible to birds. His kill ratio of birds went way down when we got one of these.
Really?
Yeah, and we've been using these collars for at least 8 years.
So what we did is we enlisted the help of some people in Prince George, and we had a study where we had them put the collars on their cats, let the cats out as they normally would, and then report the number of birds that they were returning back to the house, and then they take the collar off and let the cat do the same thing for the next week. And we found a significant reduction in the number of birds that were brought back, but not a significant reduction in the number of mammals. And that might tap in a little bit to the fact that birds see extremely well in color, but mammals, other than humans, tend to be similar to what we would classify as colorblind. They're dichromatic. They only have blue and green cone receptor in their eye instead of a red, green, and blue like people do. And so the collars don't really stand out very well to something like a mouse, but they would stand out a lot to a bird that actually has better color vision than we do.
Why did you decide to get a collar?
I might be a crazy cat lady, but I'm crazy about birds as well.
So you're a pet owner, Aaron. That you're a cat owner specifically. You have your beautiful boy Ken Tiggs. That news story that's from CBC, that makes it sound like when two cat owners are talking, you'll discuss things like their kill ratio, and the test they did there also made it seem like cats are just bringing home dead birds, all the time. Fill me in on this. What's going on? Is it as bad as it sounds?
Is this as bad as it's? You meant well with this story. I understand.
I'm trying.
But this, yeah, this was a peace offering to me for all of the stories in the past that you forced me to cover that were harmful towards animals.
I thought this was cute towards animals. The cat with the big clown-looking collar. Look, the cat looks so ridiculous. And what's cuter than a ridiculous-looking cat? Nothing.
This story makes me angrier.
Oh my God.
The any story you've ever forced me to cover on this
I
show.
was kind of thinking, like, we're so close to Halloween that this is also, like, we're not quite at a Halloween special, but if it was, I would have called this story The Cat with the Cursed Collar. Why does that make you so upset?
Yeah. When you get a cat, you have two choices. You can have it be an indoor cat or an outdoor
Hmm.
cat. So my cat, I chose to be an indoor cat. So my cat does not go outside, uh, so it doesn't get the opportunity to hunt birds or whatever else it might encounter out in the wild. But I do like to recreate some of that in the house. I have some toys that replicate the flight of a bird that he's able to chase and catch and chew on and all of those types of things to work those
Yeah.
muscles. I know it's not exactly the same, but it's the best that I can do. But if you choose to have your cat be an outdoor cat, then that cat gets to enjoy not, there are the dangers of the outside, but then there's the pleasures of the outside, hunting, and cats love to hunt. So they'll hunt for food, but they'll also hunt to bring you gifts. And so cats will hunt birds is one of the things, mice, whatever. So if you're letting your cat outside, putting this collar on them is interfering with nature, I believe.
Mm,
So I believe there's a little bit of playing God here. And there's also an element of humiliation as well. The cat is walking around, not really understanding what is around its neck. We'll call this the noose, not the collar. And it's a humiliating, clown colored collar that alerts all of the things that this cat wants to hunt, more specifically
mm,
birds, and tells them to stay away. There's a ridiculous looking clown cat coming towards you, and you can go far up in your tree and laugh at it and point at it and squawk at it and say, "Oh, you'll never get me. I can see all the colors of your rainbow, kitty."
mm. So it's kind of like you're giving the cat the cake, but you're not letting it eat it. So you're letting it go outside, but probably
Mhm.
just allowing it to bask in the frustration of not being able to do what it wants.
And you're interfering with nature. This is the balance. So if your cat's going to be an outdoor cat, it's then participating in nature. So now you're going to interfere in that. The cat, you might as well, if you're going to give this cat the collar, you might as well just make it an indoor
Yeah,
cat.
it's a good point.
Why are you even letting it outside then at this point in time?
I tried to underhand lob you a feel good cat story, and I'm realizing now that all I did is just aggravate you and irritate you. I don't think I can win with pet stories, but I'm not going to stop. Next week, maybe the week after, I'm going to serve you up an animal story that you're going to say, "Thank you, Jordan. That warmed my heart."
Mhm.
I loved it.
I look forward to that. But until then, I'm going to unleash the Keep Canada Weird Army on you and insist that the hate mail
Call
continues
it off.
until until you can find me a pleasing pet story that will make me feel warm on the inside. Then I will put a stop to it. But until then, the tsunami of hate mail must continue. The Keep Canada Weird Army must keep battering Jordan with hate
Okay.
mail.
I'm going to pull out my secret weapon. I think I may be able to make you feel good. I received one more voicemail I want to air to you, that I want to air for you. And this one, I think, is going to hit all the right buttons. It's going to compliment you. It's going to provide a feel good response to the dark pet story we talked about last week. And that was the story of the missing dog whose owners are offering up a Taylor Swift tickets for its safe return. And if you remember correctly, the missing dog went missing after, like, kind of chasing after a coyote. We have a listener who is choosing to remain anonymous because their feelings for you could interrupt their marriage, hence their anonymity. Here's what they have to say.
Hi guys, it is Anonymous again. I'm staying anonymous because I'm married You know, some people like George Clooney, some girls like Zac Efron, but my celebrity crush is Aaron Airport. So I am talking in, writing in, because I am actually a little upset with Jordan. I'm not Canadian, so I'm not able to experience the greatness that is Robin's Donuts, and it's very disappointing. So thanks, Jordan. Next, I want to comment on the story of George, the Great Pyrenees. We actually rescued a Great Pyrenees at the beginning of this year who had run away from her home, and she was on her own in the western Pennsylvania winter for what we estimate is about 6 months. So I have great faith that someone somewhere will find the great protector who is George, because those dogs are very hardy, they survive, and I think I just have great hope that we're going to find George. So guys, have a weird Canadian day and enjoy that Robin's Donuts that I can't. Thanks, Jordan.
So I think that was Anonymous's best take at hate mail against me, but I actually found it was a little heartwarming to hear Anonymous say, like, I believe in my heart of hearts that that dog is going to be okay. It's a hero. It is a protector. That made me feel good.
Yeah, Anonymous seems to be somewhat of an expert in that breed of dog, so Anonymous has confidence that there's still a chance for a safe retrieval of the Taylor Swift dog. And that's what I hope for as well. But there's some other aspects of this voicemail from Anonymous that need to be dissected. Anonymous, you didn't mention the first time you called in that you were married. It kind of led me on a little bit. I had carved your name in my desk here. It's A plus A, Aaron plus Anonymous, with a heart around it, and I got that tattooed on my body as well. I got Anonymous, in a certain location on my body, and and I quit my job and had purchased airplane tickets to fly to parts unknown, where Anonymous is from. So I'm pretty heartbroken here. I'm not going to lie. Whatever kind of double life, Anonymous, that you were trying to pull off here is disappointing, and certainly I'd like to say I wish you all the best with your marriage, but I'd be lying. And as for me, my heart is shattered like a frozen robin's egg in the wintertime, thrown against the hard concrete of life.
We need a short ad break to collect ourselves, and then we can get back to the stories. Aaron, I have another story for you, and this one, I guess we can give it a Halloween theme. I'm going to call it The Rat Invasion of Kanata, Ontario. A community in South Kanata, Ontario is at war against a horror movie-like rat infestation. What seems to have started in a home of a prolific hoarder has grown to the point of rats, both living and dead, being found nearly everywhere in the surrounding area. If you're queasy about rats and mice, you're not going to like this story, but here it comes.
Scratching, and the sound is like a horror house. Horror, terrible.
An army of rats has called this Kanata building home for months now. Since July, Kim Hollarn says she's been seeing and hearing the rodents in and around the place that she's called home for 15 years.
At least every week, we were finding these dead rodents, and we're talking very large. Size of a small dog, frankly.
Each unit of the townhouse has been overrun by rats, but residents say this end unit is to blame. Hollarn contacted police, bylaw, Ottawa Public Health, and her local councillor, but at first there was little movement.
This was catastrophic. This was horror. Dead rats in our yards, dead rats in our house.
And at night, the sound of rats screaming in the walls. Eventually, Ottawa bylaw stepped in, forcing the owner to bring in pest control, conduct repairs, and clean up the property. That cleaning effort has taken days.
You can see just some of the garbage here piled up on the front lawn. People in the area tell me that they've been seeing trucks coming and going over the past few days, taking away mountains of trash that have been piled up in front of this home, as much as 23 tons of garbage.
With the door wide open Wednesday afternoon, a pungent odor from the interior wafted down the street. Ottawa's bylaw department says it can be challenging for them to step in situations like this, but this is one of the worst cases that they have seen.
It certainly is one of the most severe we've seen in terms of the amount of items inside the home and the level of infestation.
If the owner of the home is non-compliant, bylaw says this type of a situation could carry a bylaw fine of up to $100,000. For others living in the townhouses, there is finally light at the end of the tunnel.
But it's not over. We still have the rats now that are trying to figure out where they're going to go.
That was disturbing. For people who haven't seen the video, at one point there's like dead rats laid out and they have a measuring tape up against it. And these rats are like a foot long, not even considering the tail. Like these are giant rats all coming from an end unit of a row of townhouses. So it seems like the hoarder was on like an end unit of whatever it is, 4 or 5 homes all connected side by side. And I can only assume these rats were just breeding in there and slowly taking over the neighborhood. And that is disturbing. I've never heard rats scream in a wall before. That is straight out of like Edgar Allan Poe or something.
Oh, worse than Edgar Allan Poe. That's only the sound of nightmares. My God. I'm going to have to listen to that voicemail from the top of the show.
Just clean your ears up.
About 9 more times than I plan to, just to put me at ease. So, yeah, this story is, I don't even know what to think of this story.
It's awful.
It's gross. It's frustrating that neighbors can let their properties deteriorate to the point that they let this happen and they do nothing about it and they let it get worse and worse and worse. Yeah, there's nothing positive about this, and it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of money to fix it.
Yeah, when it gets to this point, we've heard a story before about like a pizza shop in Calgary, Newfoundland that was infested with rats. The pizza shop closed down, they demolished the building, and all those rats just walked off to the surrounding neighborhood. And started infesting everywhere. And that's kind of like what's happening here. Like those rats likely been living in the junk that this like worst ever hoarder had allowed to accumulate in their home. Now that bylaw has stepped in finally and got them to clean out the house, those rats now they need something to eat. So the next couple months, I bet, are going to be pretty challenging in that neighborhood. But if everybody collectively works together to keep their yards clean, takes pest control kind of measures, they can get it under control. But it's going to, like I just said, it's going to be a bad month or two at least.
Yeah, it's going to take some time, and probably longer than a month or two. But I don't know. I mean, I'd like to move on from this story. That's turned my stomach listening to that sound. So,
well, maybe this voicemail will continue allowing you to feel the same way, but maybe not in as disturbing or as gross of a way. I've received several emails and voicemails related to a situation that's playing out across the border in a place called Kitsap, Washington. And it has a lot of the same elements of this, except it's not rats, it's raccoons. Listen to this voicemail and we can talk a bit about what's going on over there.
Hey, Jordan and Aaron. This is your correspondent, Lee, in Virginia. Saw something come across. It was a headline out of Kitsap, Kitsap, Washington. Some lady was trapped in her house or accosted in her house because her yard was loaded up and she was surrounded by 80 to 100 raccoons. Pretty sure this may be an element of your animal uprising. Anyway, thought I'd pass that along because it's definitely weird. Love the podcast. You guys keep up the good work.
So I did a bit of Googling before we went to air tonight to figure out what was happening down there. How did 80 to 100 raccoons take over this woman's yard and hold her captive in her home? A bit of the background on this is she had been feeding them for a while. She kind of like the
Oh
raccoon
yeah, you
whisperer.
instantly got to the the definite reason as to what happened here.
Yeah, so
Feeding.
she was feeding them for a while, and somehow I don't know, like the missing link between feeding the raccoons and kind of having them as your yard pet sort of thing, to it getting to the point that 80 to 100 of them surrounded her home, were acting aggressive. She basically um, locked herself in her house and called police to get rescued from her home. Uh, he suggests that maybe it's connected to the animal uprising. I feel like this is just like there's a saying that you F around and you find out. I think if you feed them well enough, they're going to show up with their friends.
Yeah, the thing about the animal uprising, not that this particular story do I think is directly connected to the animal uprising, but it shows what pivotal pieces of the puzzle the raccoons are going to play in the
Mm-hmm.
animal uprising.
Mm-hmm.
So if the crows, as we've determined in prior episodes, are the brains behind the operation, they're the ultimate planners of the animal uprising, the raccoons are like the special forces. So the raccoons are not, I've always said this, are not to be trifled with. I've had dealings with raccoons in the past, and I respect their power. I would never ever feed them, my God. I mean, you're just begging for it at
Are
that
you
point in time.
Keep in mind though that you and I did talk about going somewhere and feeding raccoons together.
That's someone else's property, though.
Yeah, that's true. We would have bounced and let them deal with the fallout.
Yeah, yeah, you deal with it. I would
uh,
never do it on my own property.
No, certainly not. I feel for this woman. I think she learned a valuable lesson, and it's when you let the genie out of the bottle, I don't know how you put it back in. And I think she let the genie out when she fed them a few times. They all showed up at her house. Yeah, the police may have come and bailed her out, but those raccoons are coming back. Like that story is not over.
No,
Mm-mm.
no, that's going to be a while before they stop trying to kill her for food.
Yes, or turn her into food. They're basically saying leave something out, or you're our
Or
next
it's
meal.
or we're eating you.
Yeah. Oh, we're getting very close to Halloween, so I want to start kind of sprinkling some pumpkin spice over this show. I have a story here about some pumpkin mischief that I want to unpack. Maybe you can read this one if you have the notes in front of you there. This is one of those stories that stem from a police press release.
Okay, yes. So I can read this for you. Police in Middlesex County are investigating a bizarre and dangerous incident involving pumpkins being hurled from overpasses onto moving vehicles on highways 401 and 402.
Major highways in Ontario, if you
Major
know.
highways in
Yeah.
Ontario, that's right.
I think the 401, I could be wrong, but I think the 401 is like Canada's biggest highway.
Oh, that's a huge highway. Yeah, it's a very famous one.
Yeah. All right, keep going.
Um,
Sorry.
in the early hours of Saturday morning at around 2:30 a.m., Ontario Provincial Police responded to a call on the eastbound lanes of the 401 near Old Victoria Road. A transport truck had been struck by a pumpkin launched from above, smashing into its windshield.
Oh,
Less than an hour later, at 3:10 a.m., two more transport trucks were hit by flying pumpkins on Highway 402 near White Oak Road. Thankfully, no injuries were reported, and the truck drivers managed to pull over safely. Authorities are now calling on the public for help in identifying who was behind these reckless acts. The investigation is ongoing, and anyone with information is urged to contact Keep Canada Weird or the
or the
police.
police. Good addition. Live editing
Yeah.
as you go.
Yeah.
Teenagers do stupid things. I've heard of throwing snowballs at cars, but dropping pumpkins onto transport trucks at that are driving on Canada's, if not North America's largest highway is absolutely insane.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's super dangerous. This is next level danger that these youths, and I can only assume that they
It
are
must be
part
teenagers.
of the teenage uprising. Um,
No, it's not
this is
it's not the teenage uprising. It's the teenage, and it needs to be something using the word down. The teenage downfall, because they seek
no, because that
teenagers seek.
suggests you can't say teenage downfall because that suggests that the teenagers are going through a downfall when they are actually organizing and
A
also trying to
societal
take over.
downfall. So the teenage
It'd be
incident,
the teenage takeover.
yeah, but it's not even a takeover. It's like what teenagers seem to want to do is cause the downfall of society.
Mm,
So maybe it's like the teenager instigated societal downfall is what we'll go with.
that's too much of a mouthful, though.
The teenage instigated societal downfall, which is the TISD.
Why don't we turn this to the audience to maybe come out?
If you can do better than the TISD, yeah, let us know.
Yeah,
But there's
yeah.
no question it's happening.
There's no question it's happening, and it's been happening for a while now. And this is a clear indication that the teenagers are not stopping. They're only ramping up because this is really dangerous. This is like, maybe a snowball or an egg or something is what we've seen in the past. Smaller objects that aren't going to smash your windshield, but
A
um,
pumpkin. And like, and
pumpkins,
I'm
yeah.
assuming this time of year that they're not carved pumpkins. So like a pumpkin itself, before it's carved and its guts are pulled out, like they weigh like 15, 17 pounds, like some pumpkins. You pull all the guts out of
Hmm.
them and then you get them down to, 7 or 8 pounds. But if these are full pumpkins being dropped in front of transport trucks on the 401 highway, oh man, that this can't keep up because that someone will be killed if that keeps up.
Yeah, I mean, I was bad for throwing snowballs at cars when
I
I
was too.
was a kid. Yeah, and I had gotten chased so many times from cars pulling over and trying to get at us, and having our parents called because we were throwing snowballs at cars, and I look back at it now and I'm like, even that was incredibly dangerous now that
Yeah.
I'm in my mid 40s and scared of everything. Um, it's something that I'm just like, if I was driving in the wintertime when the roads are slippery and got hit with a snowball, I'd be furious. And but at the same time, I'm scared of teenagers, so I wouldn't do anything about it.
um, I'm going to start moving on to the final segment of this show. Before I do, we just talked pumpkins. Before that, we talked an insane rat and raccoon infestation. We're going to start putting more pumpkin spice, more Halloween spirit into the show. So if anyone out there in Keep Canada Weird Nation has any Halloween themed stories, stories of decorations, stories of costumes, anything related to Halloween, I want to hear from you. So get at us by going to nighttimepodcast.com/contact and send us a voicemail. We'll get to them in an upcoming episode. Now let's go for a short break. And when we come back, I have two voicemails, Aaron, that I know are going to make your day. While we're in an ad break, you should refill your Robbins cup there with more of that liquor because you're going to want it for these. All right, Aaron. I got two voicemails this week that I saved for the end of the show because they're both so good. I love these. Do you want to start with... Actually, I'm not going to give you the option. I know the best way to do this. Let's start with a listener named Michelle, originally from Cape Breton, a traveling nurse. She has a lot to say about Robin's Donuts. Here it comes.
Hey, Jordan and Aaron. My name is Michelle. I am calling from Nova Scotia. I currently live in the beautiful Annapolis Valley, and I'm originally from Cape Breton Island. I should start by mentioning that I am a nurse, and I have been nursing for 11 years. So back in 2020, I started travel nursing across Canada. So from one end to the other, from Newfoundland all the way to BC. And back in my first nursing contract, I went to Twillingate, Newfoundland. And while I was there, the only coffee shop that was available to get coffee from was Robin's Donuts. And I was familiar with Robin's, but back then, I don't think there were as many as there are now, or they weren't as accessible. So I started going to Robin's more often, and man, let me tell you, this Robin's was different. Of course, they sell baked goods, but this Robin's particularly sold cheesecake. There was like an Oreo cheesecake, a turtle cheesecake. I remember it vividly because I wanted to go there every day to get a different dessert. And then have pies, lemon meringue pies, coconut cream pies. But what made this Robin stand out the most in comparison to any of the ones that I've been before is that they had full breakfast. And I mean bologna, pancakes, French toast, ham, and you name it, they had it. But this particular Robin's had what was called, I might not be able to pronounce it correctly, especially because I don't have a Newfoundlander accent, but they're called totens. I think it's like a deep fried bread or dough. It's almost like a pancake dough. Yeah, this toten was life changing. It was so good, and I've never experienced it before. And they had it at this Robin's, on top of like all of the other big breakfast items that you can get. So I don't know if we have anywhere in Nova Scotia that serves similar dishes or big breakfast, but that I always like so funny. And I just think about that Robin's every time you guys talk about it on your podcast. I know Aaron can't Google toten on the show, but when you get a chance to, and if you ever get a chance to try it, it was deadly. Well, keeping Canada weird, guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
So I did look up
Mm-hmm.
what a totem was before we went on air, and I think this speaks to kind of the brilliance and greatness of Robin's Donuts. Is totens are like they're very regional. It's like a Newfoundland dish, and it's like a version of a pancake. It's kind of like imagine taking like a pancake dough and instead of frying it in a pan, just dropping it in hot grease and deep frying it. So the end result is kind of like a pancake, except it's a lot fatter and puffier. It kind of looks more like a biscuit or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
if you read about them online, it's a Newfoundland food. And so like Tim Hortons, their menu is so watered down. It's the same all across the country. You go to Tim's in Alberta, it's the same as if you went to Tim's in Newfoundland. The stuff's probably made in the same factory and frozen and shipped around the country. Robin's Donuts doesn't do it that way. They make regional dishes like Tootens that they just sell in, maybe just in that one Robin's location.
Mm-hmm. That's the genius of Robbins. It reflects the community that it's in, and it's not a cookie cutter, the same Robbins everywhere you go. And it's an exciting coffee shop, I must say.
It's changed the course of the show. I think it breathes new life into us because we went from being so negative and always complaining about Tim Hortons to being so positive and celebratory.
Mm-hmm. And people can't call us ignorant anymore or uneducated or anything like that anymore because now we only talk about Robbins and we know everything about Robbins.
Uh, Great segue. They cannot call you ignorant when you talk about plays and directing plays and producing plays and acting in plays because that's your thing, right?
Oh yeah, sure.
Well, this next voicemail I think is going to it's definitely going to work for you. A listener named Charlotte, she didn't make a Robin's Donuts ad. She made a Robin's Donuts radio play. You want to listen?
Oh my God, I can't wait. And this completely flies in the face of the Tim Hortons musical that we had to sit through to review that
Yes,
time.
that's right. We did the review of the Tim Hortons stage show. Here's the Robin's Donuts version, produced by Charlotte. Keep Canada Weird listener. Here it comes.
So I'm hanging out in Cape Breton with my Aunt Dee, waiting for my Aaron Airport fan club meeting to start, and I have some time to kill. So me and Aunt Dee stop by the local thrift store. Well, I'm perusing the racks when behold, there it is, a pristine-looking Robin's Donuts t-shirt. Being a fan of Robin's Donuts, I just had to have this t-shirt to show off my love of Robin's Donuts. As I go to reach out for the shirt, another hand reaches out and grabs it at the same time as me. Well, if it isn't my nemesis, Bus Stop Bonaparte. I say, listen, Jordan, I gotta have this shirt. I'm the biggest Robin's Donuts fan in the world. Bonaparte hesitates. That's when Aunt Dee interjects and says, listen, Bonaparte, you little bitch, hand it over. Accepting defeat, he relinquishes the shirt. I'm headed to the register, basking in my Robin's Donuts t-shirt victory, when I run into a small boy. He looks up at me with a childlike wonder that can only be evoked by Robin's Donuts. And he says, hey, lady, is that a Robin's Donuts t-shirt? And I say, yeah, kid, what of it? And he says, oh, I just love Robin's Donuts. I go there with my dad all the time. I hang my head in shame. I look at this kid and I say, hey, kid, do you want the shirt? And he said, oh boy, do I. I hand it over. He goes running, saying, hey, Dad, look at this great Robin's Donuts shirt I just scored. I look up to see him running into the arms of my enemy. Oh well, at least I can still head over and get some coffee and donuts at my favorite place, Robin's Donuts. And scene.
Oh my God.
Hey guys, I hope you liked my little performance. I don't live in Canada. I've never been to Robin's Donuts. It's on my list now. But instead of sending me merch, I'd love for you to give it to someone who would enjoy it more than I would. And I just want to let you guys know that I am donating a little bit of money in your name to the Cape Breton SPCA, because I know Aaron Airport is a big animal fan, as am I. And for the love of our cats, and for the love of Canada, and for the love of weird, I will be donating to the Cape Breton SPCA, and I encourage your fans to do the same. Have a great night, guys. Keep Canada weird.
I'm like teary-eyed. That was
There's
so
only
good.
one way to respond to this voicemail, and that's with this.
That was so good. It captured so much. Like one of my kids is in there. It's at a thrift store. It's got Robin's
Well, that
Donuts.
was the plot
It
twist in the
references.
end. I was like,
I
it was
know.
Jordan's son. Oh, like the
Yeah.
whole time. Like I see dead people, you know?
It referenced the little bee situation,
It did.
except it pointed back at me.
Yeah.
And here's another thing: is Charlotte is she's not even. I believe she's American, and
Yeah.
she like did the research to look up the Canadian, the Cape Breton SPCA.
Yeah, no, the fact that she's going to donate to the SBCA in my area, it's heartwarming, and this has been an entire episode of voicemails that have really touched our hearts, touched our minds, attacked you, just everything that I've always hoped for in voicemails.
Yeah, despite a lot of them being critical or corrective or hate towards me, this has to be one of my favorite episodes to do.
Oh yeah.
I
I
feel
mean,
like
so many times I'm on the brunt of the venom of the listeners at times. You know, which I'm fine to play that part in this show, to be the dartboard for the distaste of the listener. But this week's episode has been different, and finally the guns have been pointed at you, and we've celebrated Robins, and we're getting donations to the SPCA, and we've been entertained. We've been definitely entertained by our listeners. So I'm very happy right now.
Yeah, I wrote Charlotte an email thanking her on behalf of myself. Aaron, you wanna thank her since you didn't write that email?
Yeah. Well, see, her and I connect obviously in a much deeper level than you and her do. So I don't even have to say thank you. She already knows.
I like it. This has been wonderful. If anyone out there heard their voice on this show, send me an email at nighttimepodcast@gmail.com and we'll get something out to you right away. But I think we've done enough here. We've heard some weird Canadian stories. We heard from listeners all across, I think, just North America. And we got a little emotional. That voicemail from Charlotte, I don't know if it's the tea or what, but that was really nice. That was special.
That was special. Yeah, that definitely was the cherry on top of this episode.
Let's put a bow on the episode then. We can't go up from here. We can only ruin it. So let's end now before we make anything
I'm
bad.
worried that the bow that we put on this episode is going to squish our cherry that we also just put on this episode. How about some hot fudge?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Some sprinkles. Handsome Aaron Airport. Until next time.
Jordan Bus Stop Bonaparte. Until next time.
I believe Charlotte should have earned enough goodwill that maybe you can call off the hate campaign of listeners against me. Was that enough? That was a feel-good story.
Yeah, but that was Charlotte providing that feel-good story, not you.
Okay.
It has to be from you.
Okay.
And Jordan Bus Stop Bonaparte, until next time, I'm going to make one last call out on this episode. I know we've been calling out to our listeners a lot, but there's one potential listener out there that I want to speak directly to right now. And that's Anonymous's husband. I want the husband of Anonymous to call in, go to nighttimepodcast.com/contact. And I want to hear your side of the story. And I think we need to come to terms here and hash out everything to do with Anonymous and
who she's going to be with
and what she's done to the both of us. I mean, I'm sure Anonymous's anonymous husband doesn't know about me, right?
I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I fulfill our mission to keep Canada weird, but let us call out to you for even greater support. If something weird happens in your area, or if you have any thoughts, theories, or opinions on anything we discussed tonight, we want to hear from you. The best way to reach us is by using the voice recorder that can be found at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. We're excited to hear from you. Now I'm going to start wrapping this episode up, but before I do, let me end with some thanks. First, a big thanks to all the correspondents who contributed to this episode. If you had a voice message aired, email me your mailing address at nighttimepodcast@gmail.com, and I'll have your Keep Canada Weird badge sent out to you. I just ask that you wear it proudly and responsibly. I also want to give a big thanks to Aaron for another great evening, and a shout out to Unicole, who provides our intro and outro voiceovers, as well as Monty Data, who provides the outro version of O Canada that you're about to hear. But then lastly, and most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening to this show, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. On the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the Nighttime Podcast Premium feed, Megan, Sam, and Tara. For those of you who want to support the show that way, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple dollars a month, and that money will fund the creation of new episodes. But the premium feed will also give you those episodes 2 days early, get them to you ad-free, and give you access to a full back catalog of nighttime episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium at nighttimepodcast.com/subscribe. And if the premium feed isn't for you, but you still want to support the show, that's easy. You just got to share this episode on social media and let all your like-minded friends know why they should listen. Your support means everything to us. Now, until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let us know if you see anything weird.
Keep Canada Weird is written, hosted, and produced by the Nighttime Podcast.
And now to our viewers and listeners everywhere. Good night.
Aaron, one last thing to do here tonight. That's story of the night. We got to stick with the actual Canadian news stories, though, and we're pretty short. Really, we have tonight just 3 main stories. We have the rat invasion of Kanata, Ontario, the cat with the cursed collar, in the pumpkin havoc in London. I am going to say, I think the story of the night for me is the rat invasion in Kanata, Ontario, but I feel like we didn't deliver on the breaking down of that story enough, because we didn't put together the fact that cats with the cursed collars could probably help the people of Kanata, Ontario, if they didn't have those
That's
collars.
right. That's right. Got to take the collar off. Yeah. See, so many of the stories tonight really triggered a lot of trauma in me. You know, my feelings towards the cat collars was very clear. They really upset me, and the unbalancing of nature. I found the rat story disturbing, and I was very terrified by the pumpkin story about me, potentially being rained down upon with pumpkins by, lucid teenagers. And this one is hard to pick a favorite because they all terrified me in different ways. But if I had to pick one, it's going to be the cat story because it involves cats, and I love cats.